Magical, isn't it? This is how we all felt growing up near the oceans. From being the daughter of a merchant navy officer to diving from a very young age and being raised in a coastal country, we all grew up as our magnificent oceans nurture us. This is why we thought that iGEM was our opportunity to return the favor and take a step forward conserving our oceans. Just when we got started, we didn't really know how to move forward. Just like when solving a word puzzle, thoughts jumbled in our head. How could we contribute to conserve our oceans? What is the problem? Ghost nets. Nets that get lost or abandoned in the ocean but keep on fishing, posing a threat to life in several ways. By being key players in the ocean plastic crisis, ghost fishing, and bycatch. How so? By making up to almost half of the mass of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, but also, when lost or abandoned, affect 800 species, among which are sea turtles, sea lions, whales, and dolphins. What's more heartbreaking is that more than 650,000 marine animals get injured or killed by bycatch every year. This has almost driven the extinction of the vaquita porpoise in the region of Mexico. To dive deeper and understand whether our project could create an impact in the global community, we talked to Eva, Thomas, and Paul, who confirmed us that this was a real problem and that a solution was needed, and it was needed immediately. Talking to experts enlightened us on the fact that this was a local problem everywhere, in all our home countries, and therefore a global solution was needed. Unfortunately, no solutions are on the horizon. As previously tested materials for fishing nets, they have just not performed as expected. Wouldn't it be cool then to develop a biodegradable while functional material for fishing nets? Is that even possible?
Yes, of course. And that is when our adventure as Netlantis started. We are Matteo, Peppa, and Srishti from UCopenhagen, and together with our team members, we embarked on the journey to create biodegradable fishing nets. Here, we unveil to you the first ever SynBio solution for sustainable fishing. Biodegradable, silk-based biocomposite fibers. But is there even a need for such a product in the market? Well, yes, as the fishing industry is estimated to grow to 31 billion USD by 2028. And the current nets take about 600 to 800 years to degrade, while only being efficient for 6 months to 3 years. Our product positions itself uniquely in the market by being more degradable compared to the existing nets, having higher tensile strength by weight, and also its design is customizable thanks to the modularity of SynBio. Given the feasibility of a product, several organizations have shown interest to support us in the future. Of course, to implement your product in the real world, what's really crucial is the input from your end users. Here, taking advantage of our diverse team, we successfully interviewed fishermen from India, Italy, China, Germany, and Denmark. And among several properties, the properties that they desired the most in their nets is strength, durability, flexibility, and softness.
All right, now let's dive into the science and see what we actually did. So, when we went about doing our project, all right, here we go. We decided to conceptualize it with 3 different modules. First of all, the main material, the silk fibers. This is module 1. We decided to go with silks because we thought, well, they are high yielding and they are produced effectively in bacteria, in yeast and so on. But at the same time, they are also among the strongest fibers that we find in nature. Although, of course, we realized you cannot just take a silk, put it in the sea, and hopefully it's going to work. And therefore, we thought about the second module. This is the protective layer, the silk. And as part of this, we also thought, well, we're going to have to coat our fibers with a system that's going to be stable. And that's why we're going to use a conjugation tool that we can also talk about it later. Finally, we went a bit crazy thinking about what can SynBio do in 30, 40, 50 years in a project like this. And therefore, we thought, well, there are a series of functionalities that can be added to a net thanks to the modularity of SynBio. And we'll talk about that later. So, of course, as every iGEM team, we start somewhere. And our inspiration came from a number of previous iGEM teams before us. Aalto University, for example, was particularly useful for us because one of their leaders, Marcus Linder, helped us in picking the silks that we were going to use. We went to him with a series of ideas, right? But, for example, with a short time frame of iGEM, mini spiderines, he suggested were a very good shot. Why? Because, well, they are particularly optimal for spinning. And why is that? Essentially, they are fusion proteins obtained by uniting two different proteins of different spiders. On the left, you see Aranius ventricosus, from which we take the C-terminus and the repeats of a spiderine and give a high pH sensitivity. On the right, instead, we see Eustrenopus australis, from which we get the N-terminus, which gives a high solubility. Of course, this came into a moment of hard work in the lab. We had to optimize a series of parameters to get high yields out of these proteins. It was a lot of effort. We managed to get to bioreactors. And here at the bottom, you can see a little bit of our stress throughout the time. And we failed again every time we get to the spinning. But why was that? To solve the problem, we turned to DryLab, which is a bit the unsung hero of iGEM. And here, I present to you, to iGEM for the first time, a spinning model that simulates thousands of spiderine proteins interacting during the entire process of spinning. Essentially, the motifs of silks are simplified into spheres, which have certain physical properties. Now, the model can predict which ones are going to agglomerate. And out of these, for example, shown in blue and in red, can predict where beta sheets are going to form. Also, hydrogen bonds can be formed between these beta sheets and are going to give the strength to the spiderine fiber. Here you see what happens when you spin a 15% weight over volume or a 30% weight over volume. We were doing 15%, but you see that the network is much better at 30. And this is also a method of average size of the beta sheets, seen in the orange line at the top. So what we did was changing our structure, right? And we got here to the spinning, which is a video, but it's not really working. And essentially, we're, of course, at our peak, right? We're super happy, super successful, all right. And the peak was soon followed by a very low moment when we put our fibers in water, and the next day, well, they were brittle, right? All right, go back to the start. So we talked to Andrea Stolter from WWF, and she gave us a very good, suggestion. Potentially, there are organisms living around the sea that have already evolved some mechanism to deal with this problem. It's called supercontraction. And what we found amazed us. This is Marina, a marine spider that lives in intertidal areas. It looks for burrows in the rocks and hides from the tides by covering its holes by producing a seal protein that is said to last up to 3 days in contact with seawater. So this was one of the things for us. We went, found a transcriptome of this organism, we found the right frames, the part that made sense, and we managed to produce the first ever marine spider-based spiderine. At the same time, of course, we had a bit of low yields because it was the first time ever to produce this protein, and here you can see one of the STS where we tried to increase this. And in parallel, we also focused on what other organisms might be producing silk proteins. Well, it turns out that anemones actually have a protein called anorine that can be spun into fibers because it has the same motifs that collagens and silks in general have. And so we were also able to present to iGEM as a new biobrick this anorine protein, which is here produced, for example, optimally at 37 degrees. To sum up, here you can see that our modules, well, they're all silk proteins. We have mini spiderines, the marine one, and the anorine.
Well, so we were able to successfully produce our fiber, right? But would this fiber will be strong and durable enough to sustain the harsh marine conditions? Well, we turned into Marcus Linder to talk about the possibilities of adding a protective layer to our fiber core. And he encouraged us to look into muscles, and specifically into the proteins that are located in their viscus, that is muscle fruit proteins, MFPs. Why? Because as you can see here, they are very strong. They are just like glue. And we thought, okay, this is super cool because then we would be able to attach it easily to our fiber core. But what is that makes MFP sticky? Well, actually, MFP is very rich in tyrosine residues that get converted into DOPA molecules by post-translational modifications. And is this DOPA content the one that is directly related to the stickiness? And noteworthy is that MFP5 is among the most sticky ones. And that is why for our hybrid fusion protein, we decided to use MFP5 together with MFP1, and the so-called MFP151. Then we thought, okay, so to code the fiber with MFP151, it's super easy, right? MFP151 is sticky, then we just put it together with the fiber, they stick, great, we have our, our proof of concept. But it didn't really work. So we had to go back to the lab, and we work with the tag catcher system. How does this system work? Well, as Mateo was mentioning before, this is a protein conjugation tool. So you attach the tag to one of your proteins of interest and the catcher to the other. And when those two, they come closely together, they form a strong covalent bond, just spontaneously. But were we actually able to do this? Do we have a proof of concept? Yes. We showed in our SDS that these two proteins attach, and therefore that our tag-catch system work. But is this it? What does the future hold? We aim to go far and beyond and incorporate functionalities to our fiber, and therefore unlock a myriad of possibilities.
Educating today's youth is very important, as they are the future. And hence, we took tremendous effort to go out and communicate with a broad target audience. But before doing so, we got in touch with Soon Home, a bioethicist, to understand how do we communicate about SynBio while also highlighting the ethical considerations. And he advised us to be honest and have open-minded conversations. We reached out to the non-scientific community through a sold-out Science Through Improv comedy show. We also educated people about biosecurity, biosafety, and dual use in research through our interactive presentation at EDA Biosciences. We worked with workshops in eco-schools where kids collected trash and made something useful out of it while also understanding responsible production and consumption. For our outreach material, that is the kids' activity book, Oscar the Octopus narrates the story of a project. And we also integrated Soon's advice by including a cookie allegory to explain these young kids about the ethical consideration. The best part is they could use their own creativity to draw their own supernets. We have our very own digital synthetic biology game, Pocket Lab, that was played by more than 70 high school students, where they understood about SynBio and its components, BioBricks, by solving interesting scientific mission. The highlight of this game is it can be played by anyone as it is user-friendly. As you can see, one of our team members, Joachim, operating this game just by using his head and mouth. In order to contribute to the future iGEM teams, we have a BioBricks collection of 27 parts, including improvement to the existing parts. We also have the possibilities of Silk, a Silk guide which includes protocols, tips, and tricks that we made through a partnership with two iGEM teams, EPFL and Vienna. We have a modeling guide to make our dry labs life easier. Of course, our education tool, Pocket Lab. And we made the iGEM network larger by introducing it to universities in Spain. We also collaborated with 23 iGEM teams throughout our journey, where we exchanged knowledge, inspired each other, and had lots of fun. Of course, when all these aspects come together, the word puzzle is no longer confusing, and you have lived the journey of being an iGEM team. We would like to thank our advisors and sponsors who supported us throughout the way and helped us in making Atlantis a reality. Most importantly, my amazing team, as we held on tight to each other through this roller coaster ride and made this journey worthwhile. Thank you.